This message comes from Amazon Business. How can you grow your business from idea to industry leader? Bring your vision to life with smart business buying tools and technology from Amazon Business. Simplify how you stock up to get ahead. Go to amazonbusiness.com for support.
A heads up, this episode contains mentions of sexual assault.
Okay, we're gonna play like a rapid fire game.
Okay.
I'm going to describe some of these terms, and then maybe you can tell me what they mean.
Mhm.
So when I say pew pew, what does that mean?
Gun shooting, gun violence.
All right, palm-colored people.
That would be white people.
Hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident.
Okay, so Gene, there's this code language that's been around for a while. Like, have you heard someone use the term unalive?
Yes, unalive. Like, they mean like dead or killed, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see people use things like, instead of saying like President Trump's name, they might say 47, or they might just post an emoji of an orange.
That's B.A. Parker and Gene Demby, and they're the hosts of NPR's Code Switch, a show about how race and identity show up in culture. And I know a lot of you listening know what they're talking about. This trend on social media of using code words for different topics so you can trick the algorithm from categorizing your content in a certain way.
For a lot of TikTok creators, this is a way to try and make sure their videos are being seen by as many people as possible.
Right, and I'm sure they're trying to get around the air quotes, I'm doing air quotes, algorithm, you know what I mean, that decides how many people see a video based on what's said in it, on, you know, what the subject matter is, whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes videos can get flagged for their content or possibly get taken down.
What do you think? Is this a sign of a kind of censorship by social media platforms? Or are algorithm categorizations a way of protecting users from seeing too much violent or aggressive content? Well, whatever side of the debate you fall on, Gene and Parker are going to show you how this so-called Algospeak or algorithm speak shapes your beliefs in conscious and unconscious ways. I'm passing the mic to them so you can get these answers and so much more.
Gene, can you imagine on our show if we had to say palm-colored people to talk about all the issues we talk about?
Yeah. I mean, you know, given what we talk about, it would make it basically difficult to get anything on the air if we couldn't just say white, black, whatever.
Exactly. Now, for people who want to talk about race on social media platforms like, say, TikTok, that's a real consideration. In 2020, for example, some creators noticed that if they mentioned a phrase like Black Lives Matter or supporting Black success, they were being flagged for inappropriate content. Same goes for stating, I am a Black man. That was flagged, but I am a neo-Nazi and I am an anti-Semitic, those were okay. Now, full disclosure, that particular problem has since been rectified, and TikTok apologized for an automatic filter that was, quote unquote, erroneously set to flag phrases without respect to word order, end quote. But creators are still leery of saying the wrong thing, and then poof, they reach less people, or worse, their accounts get suspended altogether. So I talked about this with a linguistics professor named Dr. Kendra Calhoun. I found a paper that Dr. Calhoun co-wrote called They Edited Out Her Nip-Nops, Linguistic Innovation as Textual Censorship Avoidance on TikTok.
Okay, I'm sorry, wait. What are nip-nops?
Okay, according to the FCC, we can't say what we regularly call them, but areolas, Gene.
So we're editing out our nip-nops then. Okay.
Basically, yeah.
So it sounds like Dr. Calhoun is the person we should be talking to get to the bottom of this.
So I sat down with Dr. Calhoun to try to understand more about what she calls linguistic innovation.
Ooh, okay. Take it away, Parker.
A while ago, I started to notice people were like talking and sharing in code, and I realized that some users were self-censoring. But is that necessary? Why do that?
There's kind of, I guess, two interconnected reasons. One is actual evidence of people's social media content being suppressed or deleted or demonetized on other platforms. So, for example, like LGBTQ content was demonetized on YouTube. Like there's evidence of that. More recently, pro-Palestine content and content coming out of Palestine has been suppressed, if not fully deleted, on meta platforms like Instagram and Facebook.
We reached out to Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, and we reached out to Google, which owns YouTube. Both platforms pointed us to their community guidelines and denied intentional suppression of particular voices, especially based on their identities.
Then in the TikTok context, right, people are seeing what's happening on other platforms. But then TikTok and the algorithm is so kind of mysterious, right? It's this black box. It's intentionally opaque. We don't know how it works. So people only have evidence from other platforms and then anecdotal evidence from each other of, hey, usually my posts get this many views, but then when I posted about, say, Black Lives Matter, right, I got a quarter of that. And so it became sort of common practice among people who were concerned about any the particular words or ideas that they wanted to discuss on TikTok, basically making this calculated decision of like, okay, it's more important to me to talk about this idea or this event than to use the particular words. So maybe if I just avoid saying the word white supremacy or Black Lives Matter or Nazi or whatever the word might be, that lessens the chance that, you know, my video will get fewer views like this other person is saying happened to their video. And then it sort of took off from there. But there are also cases where people do what seems like self-censorship, but they're not actually concerned about self-censorship. It's become this sort of playful way of using language on TikTok. TikTok is a very playful space, even when talking about serious issues, right? It sort of snowballed, right? It started with people being like, okay, I'm actually concerned about some of my content being suppressed. I'm going to choose not to say these words. And then people were like, hey, that's a fun thing people are doing with language. I'm also going to see how many different ways I can talk about a thing without actually saying what it is. And then people just sort of kept going from there.
Wait, so some people are self-censoring out of necessity, and then some are self-censoring out of sport?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that gap between necessity and sport is fairly pronounced, but not always understood, especially when people use certain online turns of phrase like the word grape.
Yeah, that's rape.
Yeah.
That one in particular, I've seen people have mixed feelings about because they feel like it makes it sound, it's like cartoonish and childish and it feels silly. And
yeah,
when trying to talk about a not at all silly topic. So that word in particular, I've seen people have very mixed feelings about.
But when you have these bursts of new phrases online, there can be instances of total confusion between those who are, say, chronically online and those who are more steeped outside. So inevitably, two different conversations are being had.
Because it's meant to be pretty legible, a lot of times people can infer, you know, or guess or interpret correctly what's being said, even if it's not a conversation that they're part of. But there are times where the form that someone uses is so niche or you need so much context to understand what it's referring to that it does create a very small in-group and a very large out-group. And I see that more just resulting in confusion. So there's the example of Julia Fox, who commented right on someone's video where they were using the word mascara as sort of a censored form to refer to sexual assault. She was like, said something along the lines of like, I don't feel sorry for you. It's just mascara, right? So she was sort of completely on the outside, did not have the context for what this person was talking about. So for the people who did know, right, that this person was talking about sexual assault, then she came off as like really insensitive, kind of crass. And then when she found out what it meant, she was like, oh my God, I never would have left this comment if I knew that this is what people were talking about. You know, and people were generally like, okay, she apologized. She didn't mean it. That's okay. So I see more instances of that where it creates this sort of confusion as opposed to people feeling like, oh, I want to be, in the in group and I just don't know what's going on and you won't let me, as very often happens with TikTok, people will just take up words even if they don't fully understand what it means or how it's supposed to work or what it's supposed to refer to. But that's a whole other conversation.
With this push and pull of language happening online, there is a legitimate need for online content moderation. But it can be a situation where hate speech and discussion of hate speech can be lumped together, ultimately censoring a vulnerable person's experience. So how is this way of communicating impacting people of color or other vulnerable communities?
I mean, from my perspective, it's forcing them to have to engage in another layer or another form of labor just to be able to say what they want to say, right? Most people who get on social media want to talk about their lives. They may not get into great detail, right? But they want to say something about this is how I experience the world. These are things that have happened to me. This is my perspective on XYZ. For people of color, for other marginalized people, right, the things in society that are considered quote unquote controversial or contentious are very often the things related to our lives. Right. Mm-hmm. So when trans people want to talk about the experience of being trans in an anti-trans society like the US, right, you're going to get into these supposedly contentious topics. To even just talk about lived experience, right, then you have to be what words can I say or not say? What might get my content flagged? As opposed to just sitting down, opening up your camera and saying, hey, here's a thing that happened to me today. And I'm just going to brain dump, say it exactly as it's coming to my mind.
I spoke with someone who has firsthand experience with exactly what Dr. Calhoun is talking about.
In general, being Black online kind of puts you in a position where your existence on the app becomes inherently political. And I think there's a lot of Black content creators who don't necessarily want to make political content, who then start making political content because inherently their existence becomes political.
That's Christian Devine. He's a TikTok creator with a large reach as a cultural commentator. Christian doesn't have special insights or cheat codes into how TikTok operates beyond being a very engaged and engaging user of the platform. He watches what works and what doesn't, and uses those observations to figure out how he wants to talk about, say, colorism, elections, or hot takes on Beyonce's America.
And then you get into this place where if you want to talk about any of the things and have it reach anywhere, you have to self-censor about your own experience. Versus people who, I guess, for a moment maybe do regular news content or white content creators who, just do here's the news. It's very objective for them, whereas I've seen people who maybe just do cosplay content where they dress up as characters and they are then forced into these conversations. And then in order to express themselves in these conversations, they then have to self-censor.
So, for example, if a TikTok user is a woman of color who wants to share her experience of being harassed on the street, instead of simply saying that, she'll instead find ways to equivocate, to describe that experience without saying terms like Black, white, what she's wearing, or what was actually said to her.
And so I think, for marginalized communities, trying to talk about a serious subject when you know that if you talk about it in that way, it's going to not get the views you want it to, you have to go through steps, you have to go through layers to describe your own experience.
Coming up, how do you feel about Pew Pew?
Pew Pew, I'm a hater. A lot of those aren't necessary. A lot of those are only perceived algorithmic threats.
Stay with us.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
This message comes from Amazon Business. With smart business buying, get everything you need to grow in one familiar place, from office supplies to IT essentials and maintenance tools. Ready to bring your visions to life? Learn how at amazonbusiness.com. Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Vital Farms, who works with small American farms to bring you pasture-raised eggs. Farmer Tanner Pace shares why he chose to collaborate with Vital Farms when he brought pasture-raised hens to his small Missouri farm.
Probably the best thing about being a Vital Farms farmer is working with a group that is not just motivated for one thing. They're motivated for the well-being of the animals, for the well-being of the earth. They care about it all, and that means a lot to me.
To learn more about how Vital Farms farmers care for their hens, visit vitalfarms.com.
How would you describe your average follower?
It's varied over time. I would think my average follower now is kind of someone like me. There's a reasonable amount of nerdy black men with glasses who are following me because all of our viewpoints line up.
That's how you get almost 700,000 followers?
It's confusing to me.
Do you find yourself, some of the political content that you navigate or the historical content having how do you navigate that through this world of TikTok?
For one, the TikTok algorithm has changed over the years. The algorithm is nonsense. No one knows. There's rules that someone somewhere knows how it works, but none of the users really understand it. They'll release things, and so over the years, people have noticed certain things. For one, TikTok, it wants to make money. And so if you're someone who's speaking about political things, if you say certain words, and it's less bad now than it used to be, but if you say certain words, it puts you into a category of we don't want to show this to people because people are the word kill, right? People don't say the word kill or murder, they say unalive. And there was genuine reason for that at one point, and I think the algorithm has kind of gotten more advanced as it's gone on, and now it doesn't just say oh, kill is automatically a bad word and therefore we don't show these videos to people. But I think there's 2 to 3 categories of ways of self-censorship. There's self-censorship because if you say a certain word in a video, that video they will instantly suppress it and will not show it to people. And then there's the kind of self-censorship that is optimization. So there's certain true banned words, and then there's words that aren't banned but will put you into a category of less views or adult content for meeting people. And then there's just self-censorship for ethical reasons. There's words that I will sometimes say and will sometimes not say. I think that's the way that people self-censor themselves in any context.
We reached out to TikTok to clarify its community guidelines and ask about the claims that its algorithm suppresses certain videos. And while they do have eligibility standards for their algorithms, they said, quote, "It is false to suggest that TikTok censors specific words. As we make clear in our policies, we look at a range of factors when assessing content and enforce content based on our community guidelines," end quote. Okay, do you know, do you know that the censorship is for certain, or is it just anecdotal in your experience?
It's all anecdotal. If you get demonetized, it's mysterious. It's important and mysterious, right? The work is important and mysterious. And you'll never know exactly why, but they will tell you what they incentivize. And it'll be things that follow our community code, things that follow our ideals. You don't know what those are, but you know that if you do something that it doesn't and I'll know because it's I have 700,000 followers, right? And a lot of people will talk about the idea of getting shadow banned. And most people who feel they are shadow banned aren't shadow banned. Sometimes it's just not hitting like that. But shadow bans are real.
What does shadow ban mean?
A shadow ban is when they don't explicitly say to you that your videos aren't being pushed out, but you can start realizing that your videos aren't being pushed out.
Have you been shadow banned before?
I have been shadow banned before. And
Wow, what you do?
I talked a bit about Michael Jackson and our complicated relationship to Michael Jackson and his case history. And there are forums on the internet that exist about me of Michael Jackson fans who are like, we need to mass report this man. He is ruining his legacy. And if you get enough reports, even if the reports are done maliciously and aren't backed up, the system's like, well, people are clearly having an incredibly negative reaction.
It's like a fandom problem.
Sometimes, yeah.
All right.
And so then, like, your videos will go from, because sometimes you just have videos that people don't like and don't get pushed out for normal reasons, but they will still get some views, and then if it doesn't catch on enough. But when you're shadow banned, it's like, my video has gotten 2 views in 1 hour. I have 700,000 followers. Something happened. Like,
That's valid.
yeah.
Okay. I reached out to TikTok about shadow bans as well, and they said, quote, we notify creators when their content is removed or made ineligible for recommendation. If a creator believes their content has been incorrectly removed or restricted from the For You feed, they can appeal, end quote. Have you had these problems as of late of just like feeling the need to kind of self-censor or like, oh, this is too touchy and I don't want to, the heat's not worth it, or like I may have to like adjust how I approach this?
Not as much as I used to. There are some topics that I do feel a lot more necessary to self-censor on because I do really want, like in this, there's a conversation right now happening about who should be able to have children and whether or not having a disability is it morally viable for you to have children if you have disabilities that you know you can pass on. And I, in this moment, think it's more like important that I talk about the history of eugenics and the eugenics movement in the United States. So I'm self-censoring a lot because it doesn't like words like Hitler, which is, because of obvious fair reasons, the algorithm says, okay, people who post about Hitler are not the kind of things that we would like the algorithm to see. But I still need to somehow get out this message that, hey, even if it's negative towards being like Hitler was bad, I need to figure out if I want people to see this video, I have to kind of self-censor and talk about like a movement that happened in the 1940s in Germany. Like,
That's what you're saying?
it's one of those things because I didn't censor and I noticed that the video got less views and I was like, all right, well, now I need to like figure out how to like navigate this.
On that note, Christian, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
That was B.A. Parker and Gene Demby. They're the hosts of NPR's Code Switch. Their guests were Dr. Kendra Calhoun and content creator Christian Devine. And I highly encourage you to listen to more episodes from Code Switch in their podcast feed. They're always thinking deeply about how race and identity are showing up in all of our lives. You're going to love it. I've got one more surprise episode for you tomorrow. And on Wednesday, I'll be back with brand new episodes from It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Thanks for listening.
This message comes from Vital Farms, who works with small American farms to bring you pasture-raised eggs. Farmer Tanner Pace shares a moment that brings him a sense of purpose.
I think that when the barn doors open and the hens run to the paddocks, you can truly see what a happy hen really is. I love pasture-raised eggs because you can see the work and the pride that the farmers have and have put into these eggs.
To learn more about how Vital Farms farmers care for their hens, visit vitalfarms.com. Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country.